Take a pit stop for all things NASCAR with the Four Tire Change podcast. Here is your host, Dawson Iserloh.
It's Four Tire Change podcast, ESPN Southwest Louisiana, back after, quite honestly, perhaps the biggest and best race of the season at Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta. Unbelievable scenes. Do want to start off by thanking the listeners out there. We're able to take home an award, third place for best podcast at the LSWA Awards Brunch, Louisiana Sports Writers Association. So really appreciative of that recognition and that honor. And we're going to keep things rolling here. Season is in full swing, of course. Look, the new Atlanta, we talked about it a lot. It's been, one of the more successful reconfigurations in the history of NASCAR, I think, at this point. The racing has just gotten better, and what we saw Saturday night was maybe another iteration of that, and just the lead changes, the ability, in a lot of ways, they've found a way to blend the best parts about the super speedway packages, like, the best parts about Daytona and Talladega, with an old school feel, because the drivers still have so much control, and they can make their own moves, and they can move around. It's kind of perfect right now, and so... I don't even know what else to say other than job well done. And so we got a great race on Saturday night and some really interesting storylines that come about from it. Chase Elliott, the numbers are pretty startling when you figure he hasn't finished outside the top 20. Like, he's just been the mark of consistency. He hasn't been winning races, though. He hasn't been leading laps. He has not been, threatening for wins. And at the same time, he finally gets it done. The chess match down the stretch with he and Brad Keselowski, who was the other driver who was really in position. There was a stretch there they were talking about where, a bunch of the top 10 hadn't won a race this year, so we knew we were going to get some sort of playoff point shuffle up. And in a way, we got the least, the one that's going to upset the apple cart the least, because Chase was obviously the farthest ahead in actual points. But, for him to break through here, he needed it. And, Hendrick Motorsports as a whole, half their drivers, having not won a race yet this year, probably had them feeling antsy, despite the fact that they're 1, 2, and 3 in points after this race. It goes Byron, Elliott, and then Larson. Big job well done by the 9 team. I think you heard about it after the race, like the comms there between the 48 and the 9. Alex Bowman's decision essentially to help Chase Elliott as opposed to try and race him hard for second probably gave, Chase the only chance to win the race. Bowman still probably didn't have much of a shot, but it gave him at least somewhat of a chance in case Chase faltered or something like that, as opposed to basically letting Keselowski run away from it with the last lap. That's the benefit of having teammates up there at the end, right? With all the carnage and all the wrecks we had early in the race, having a teammate up there was no guarantee, no doubt about it. So really, really well executed there, and obviously Chase and the 9 team finally break through. But now, all of a sudden, Chase is 37 points out of first place in the point standings behind his teammate William Byron. He's very realistically in the race for the regular season title. And, while we'll sit here and go, man, his disadvantage is he doesn't have a bunch of race wins, he doesn't have a bunch of playoff points. If he finds a way to get past Byron and wins the regular season championship, that's worth 3 wins, 15 playoff points. As it stands right now, that second place finish in the standings would give him 10 points, which is basically worth 2 wins. So it's one of those where you're not going to feel great about the situation the 9's going to go into the playoffs with. But then again, he might look up and he might start the playoffs 4th or 5th most points of anybody. So, I'm not ready to say, all right, championship contender, because obviously he's got to do it somewhere else. Atlanta's a place that widens the range of outcomes as far as who can win. But keep an eye on him, right? You can't turn away from them, and they've been unbelievable at maximizing their opportunities to get good finishes. All the top. I think he's only been out of the top 15 3 times this year. As I mentioned, hasn't finished below top. Like no DNFs. Like, he's just been running effectively. Hasn't been running for wins, but he's been running effectively, and he finally breaks through with a victory. There's a couple other things throughout the race. Obviously, we could, the nuances of it. SVG had a really nice run until he didn't, which, it is what it is. Obviously, he's feeling good about his win, but now he goes to Chicago, and that's where the Cup Series is headed, is to the Chicago Street Course. And, all bets are off, right? It's 4th of July weekend. Should be a fun one. SVG's going to be, I would imagine, a heavy favorite. Is there such thing as a heavy favorite in a place like... Yeah, I think it's SVG. He won the first ever race there. He was rather dominant in it. They had the rain and all that stuff. So, he's just been so much better at those types of tracks, right? And What he pulled off in Mexico City was unreal. Now, this is the third time these drivers have seen this track. I brought it up when we talked about Mexico City. SVG's biggest advantage has seemingly been going to places that no one's seen yet, because it feels like his ability to adapt and put laps down early on at a place that everybody's unfamiliar with has been more advanced. He hasn't had that same sort of edge when you've gone to some of the more traditional road courses that the NASCAR drivers see more often. This one's kind of in between, right? 3 times, like it's not like everybody has a full book of data on it, but these guys are familiar with it at least. The setup hasn't really changed too much. So I don't know if it's as big of an advantage as maybe when they went to Mexico City, but I do expect the 88 to run out front. No doubt about it. And I think he's going to be, the car to beat. Like early on practice, qualifying, like you better find a way to get past the 88 if you want to have a chance to win this thing. Other news with his team this week, Daniel Suarez and the 99 team, they will not return to Trackhouse racing next year. It's disappointing for me. He was the literal, the founding driver of that team. I really like Daniel Suarez. I think he's a fun guy. I think he's a talented driver too. It just hasn't fully worked out, right? And he hasn't found that consistency across multiple different types of racetracks that he's needed. And Ross Chastain's done a great job this year. SVG, the space had to be made at some point, and then you also look around and like Connor Zilisch is the future there, and they really like him. Now, are they rushing Zilisch up to the Cup Series a little too soon? That argument could be made. I mean, he's 18 years old, and you're talking about maybe going full-time Cup pretty soon here in the near future. I don't know if that's the best decision long term. I really don't. But like Daniel Suarez, I think he's going to land on his feet. I think he'll find something. I don't know if it's going to be a premier team. I don't know if, you never can really predict silly season, right? You just don't know who's going to go where. So I hope for the best for Suarez. I hope he does find a team. But, disappointing to see the run in. But I am glad that it's, he's kind of going out with some class, and he's going to get to finish out the season. And, yeah, maybe he makes a run here. Maybe he finds a way to win a race and upset some people down the stretch. That could be in the cards as well. But moving forward to the Chicago street courses I mentioned, I think it's, I think I'm going to pick SVG. Like, I'm just going to keep it simple. I've been picking a lot of upsets, and that hasn't been going great, right? Thought maybe Hocevar could pull it off. I'll go with SVG. Past him, who am I looking at? I'm definitely looking at Tyler Reddick. It's been a weird lull in the season for him and that team where they haven't necessarily been as effective and as, in contention as we thought. Definitely looking at Kyle Larson. It's been, a handful of races. He hasn't really led a lap, hasn't been a factor too much in recent weeks. Maybe he gets back in the mix. And then Chris Buescher, man. Chris Buescher has consistently been really, really good at these road courses, especially in the next-gen car. Some guys have just, like Chase Elliott, hasn't had as much success in the next-gen car at road courses. Chris Buescher has had more success than he had previously. So keep an eye on that 17 team. It'd be a big breakthrough if they could find a way to put a win on their belt, get some playoff points, and get rolling with this thing. So Chris Buescher, Kyle Larson, certainly looking at those guys, Tyler Reddick, and then my pick for the win is going to be Shane Van Gisbergen. I think the Chicago Street Course has been a lot of fun. It's been a really cool thing, shutting the whole city down and getting this thing rolling. I'm not as familiar with Chicago itself. I've never been over there. But, to pull it off the way they've done, I think it's been nothing short of impressive. I know there was a lot of buzz there the first couple of years. Wonder what that's going to be like. 4th of July weekend, getting out of all these logistics. In some ways, maybe that's better to do it on a holiday weekend. Some days, maybe it's worse with all the traffic and congestion that it's going to cause. But I'm not jealous of the people who have to try and navigate that city this week while they're setting up. But it should lead to a fun race on Sunday. So we'll see how it goes. We'll keep things rolling here on the 4-Tire Change podcast. Again, appreciate it. Taking home 3rd place in the LSWA Awards for Best Podcast. We're going to keep things going here the rest of the way. We'll be back next week. Another edition of 4-Tire Change. Signing out.